hated my job. Not in a dramatic, I'm quitting to backpack Europe way. Just the slow, grinding kind of dread that seeps in over time. The kind that knots your stomach every Sunday night because Monday is coming. Box Squared was exactly as dull as it sounded. A cardboard box manufacturer with an office just as lifeless. Beige walls, flickering fluorescents, the hum of outdated computers. As regional collections supervisor, my life was spreadsheets, emails, and chasing down debt-ridden businesses that didn't want to pay for their bulk orders of corrugated waste. Monotonous, predictable, safe, until Graham Colton. You noticed him. Everyone did. 6'7", 380 pounds, a wall of a man. His gut pushed against his dress shirt, but his arms, thick, heavy, powerful, suggested function over just bulk. He had a way of taking up space, of making a room feel smaller just by standing in it. And he was loud. Graham didn't just talk, he boomed. A laugh that rattled pens in their holders. A voice that cut through the office like a siren. He was always on, always commanding attention, always making himself known. I hated how aware I was of him, how his presence loomed over every moment in that cubicle. Too big, too loud, too much. And yet, impossible to hate. People liked Graham, his jokes, his energy, his over-the-top Monday motivation speeches that made everyone groan but secretly appreciate him. Even I, God help me, sometimes cracked a smile. And that was the problem. Graham was trying too hard. Something lurked beneath the cheerfulness, a stiffness in his laugh. The way his face fell for just a second when he thought no one was looking. The way he talked about work. Not loudly, never in front of people. But I heard him. The muttered curses under his breath when the work piled up. The quiet morons and wasting my damn time grumbled between clenched teeth. There was something beneath the surface of Graham Colton. Something wrong. And sooner or later it was going to come out. I stayed late, not by choice, but because Kessler, our petty tyrant of a boss, thrived on making people miserable. He loved power plays, calling people out, nitpicking mistakes, belittling employees for sport. He especially hated Graham, saw him as an overpaid meathead, a living reminder of his own high school traumas. Graham hated him right back. But that wasn't my problem. My problem was getting home. The street was too quiet, the kind that made my skin itch. Flickering streetlights, my breath tight, steps quick. Then, movement. A figure stepped from the alley. Wallet. A knife flashed. My brain stalled. Breath caught. Hands shook. I was the perfect target. Small, thin, visibly nervous. Then, a blur, a crunch. The mugger hit the ground, screaming, and Graham stood over him, smiling. "Oh man, you okay, buddy?" His voice was casual, like he'd just seen me trip over a curb, not shattered someone's arm. I couldn't answer. The mugger whimpered, clutching his ruined limb, bent at an impossible angle. Graham didn't even glance at him. He turned to me, towering, expectant. "You gotta be careful, man." That grin, big, friendly, like he hadn't just hurt someone. I swallowed. Yeah, thanks. I didn't know how to feel. Grateful. He'd saved me. Embarrassed. I hadn't even tried to save myself. Uneasy. He was too calm. Afraid. because the way he moved, it wasn't normal. That moment stuck with me. A week later, it happened. Routine morning meeting. Kessler was in rare form, tearing into someone's spreadsheet like it was a federal crime. Then his eyes landed on Graham. "You, Colton?" Graham looked up, mid-sip of coffee. "You think we're paying you to sit around?" Kessler sneered. "Might as well hire a damn paperweight." The room tensed. Graham didn't react. Kessler stepped closer. Too close. "I've seen kids with better work ethic. All that muscle, not a single working brain cell. A snort. You're just dead weight, aren't you?" Then he poked Graham's chest. Something switched off. Graham's face went blank. Then he grabbed Kessler by the throat, lifted him, effortlessly. Silence. Then screaming. Kessler's face darkened, legs kicking. Someone shouted. A phone clattered to the floor. Too late. Graham threw him. Through a cubicle. Through the drywall. Through the glass partition. Kessler landed in a broken heap. I didn't move. Graham met my eyes, then with a sheepish grin, sat back down, adjusted his keyboard, kept working, like nothing had happened, like it was just another Tuesday. He glanced at me and muttered, "Guess I lost my temper." The office erupted. Someone sobbed. Someone vomited into a wastebasket. Shaking hands fumbled with 911 calls. Shattered glass, crushed cubicles, a jagged hole in the drywall. Too much to process. Kessler wasn't moving. His limbs twisted wrong, his suit crumpled like discarded paper. And Graham, sitting at his desk, working. His fingers tapped the keyboard. The only sign of strain, a flicker of tension in his forearm, a fleeting, unreadable look. He caught me staring and grinned. I wanted to throw up. Then the police arrived. Everything blurred. Paramedics loaded Kessler onto a stretcher. I caught murmurs, multiple fractures, collapsed lung, still breathing, but barely registered them. I was too busy watching Graham, waiting for him to be tackled, arrested. But that never happened. Instead, a group of men in dark suits walked in. Corporate, government, something worse. They ignored Graham, didn't even look at him. Instead, they herded us into the break room. My pulse pounded. One man stepped forward. No name, no introduction. "We're going to take care of everything." Calm, soothing, like speaking to children. Someone asked a question. He shook his head. "This won't take long." Then, pressure, a dull force behind my eyes. My mind swam, vision blurred. Something pushed into my skull. Not physically, but in a way I couldn't explain. Then, it was over. I blinked. Everyone else blinked too. Dazed, confused. Then, like fog rolling in, the panic evaporated. People relaxed, shoulders unclenched. Someone cracked a joke. Someone laughed. The mood shifted so fast it made me sick. The men nodded to each other and left. Job done. Fixed. But not me. The next morning, I came in expecting crime scene tape. cops, at least an email about workplace trauma counseling. Instead, nothing. Kessler's office was empty. A new boss, some guy named Henderson, was introduced without explanation. No transition, no mention of Kessler, like he'd never existed. I tested my coworkers. Weird that Kessler isn't here, huh? Blank stares. Some hesitated, like their brains snagged on something just out of reach. Then their faces smoothed, and they moved on. I was alone in this. The suits had missed me. "Hey, bud." Graham's voice boomed behind me. I flinched. His laugh, loud, warm. His presence, heavy, unshakable. I felt his hand clamp onto my shoulder, firm, grounding. "You okay, man? You look like you haven't slept." That grin, too friendly. I swallowed hard. I'm fine. I wasn't. I watched him, waiting for the mask to slip, for the rage to resurface. But Graham was normal. Too normal. Weekend plans. A barbecue with his brother. A new show. Woodworking projects. Casual. Easy. Then, man, Monday. Am I right? My stomach dropped. It was Wednesday. He was testing me. I forced a nod. Yeah, long week already. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement. He knew, and he liked that I knew. Then he got closer. Not physically, subtly. Sitting near me in meetings. Remembering things I barely mentioned. If I said I liked a coffee shop, he was there the next morning. If I mentioned weekend plans, maybe I'll swing by. Before I could tell him no. I pulled away. Shorter answers, less enthusiasm. That only made him lean in more. "Come on, man, lighten up." That too wide grin. And then, so weird that Kessler just up and left, huh? I froze, turned to him, pulse hammering, his grin. Still there, still friendly. But his eyes weren't. A test, a dare. I forced a shrug. Yeah, weird. For a second, something flickered. Disappointment, like he wanted me to break. Then he laughed, slapped my back hard enough to shove me forward. "Ah, well, guess it's above our pay grade, huh?" He knew, and he was enjoying it. That night, I locked every door and window. Then the nightmares started. Graham looming over my desk, watching. Graham standing at the printer, his eyes on me, too still. Graham, silent from across the office, his grin never fading. I didn't know what he was. I didn't know why I'd been spared. But I knew one thing. Graham noticed me, and that was the most terrifying part. Weeks passed in a sleepless haze. Days blurred. Graham was always there, present, unshakable. I tried to act normal, but it was useless. Every moment I felt it, his attention. I had seen something I wasn't supposed to, and he knew it. Then one morning, the nightmare got worse. I felt it before I saw it. A shift in the office. Stiffened postures. People straightening. Slipping into old habits they didn't remember breaking. Then, his voice. "All right. Let's see who's been slacking off while I was gone. My pulse hammered. Philip Kessler stood in the doorway, on crutches, gaunt, hollow-cheeked. His suit hung loose, his movements stiff with pain. He had been through hell, but that wasn't the nightmare. The nightmare was his face, smug, cocky, unaware. I hear I had a little accident. He chuckled, shaking his head. Damn stairs, huh? Guess I wasn't watching where I was going. No one corrected him. I searched for a reaction. Nothing. Just polite nods, empty smiles, acceptance of the lie. My stomach churned. I turned to Graham. He was grinning. Something had changed. Kessler fell back into routine, berating, nitpicking. But the weight wasn't there. The fear was gone. Because now he was weak, and Graham was watching him. Lingering stares, fingers flexing, like remembering the feel of Kessler's throat. A laugh that echoed too long. Waiting. Would Kessler push him again? Would Graham snap? And if he did, what would be left? Graham got friendlier. His presence was everywhere. You okay, man? You seem stressed. Long day, huh? Come on, lighten up. You know I got your back, right? Meant to be reassuring. They weren't. Then, one night, I stepped outside, still rattled from another too-close conversation, and saw him, sitting in his car across the street, watching. I froze, told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe he was on his phone. Maybe. His headlights flashed. A little signal. He'd seen me. My throat closed. I turned and walked the other way, forcing myself not to sprint. I felt his eyes the whole way home. I couldn't leave. Not really. Graham was always watching. The more I pulled away, the more he latched on. A joke here. A friendly gesture there. Then, texts. Hey man, just checking in. You good? If I ignored them, he'd find me at work. Didn't hear back from you? Everything okay, bud? If I responded, glad to hear. We should grab lunch sometime. My treat. I couldn't win. And the worst part, I still liked him. Even through the fear, the tight coil in my gut, I liked him. That made it worse, because I knew what he really was. Then Kessler pushed him. A Thursday, 3 hours of sleep, too much caffeine. Kessler still hobbling, on a rampage about numbers being down. Then, you. Graham looked up. You're an overpaid sack of meat, Kessler sneered. I should fire your ass and hire someone with a brain. Silence. Graham's fingers twitched. For a terrible moment, I thought it was happening again. Then, he grinned, wider than before. You're a funny guy, Phil. And walked away. I should have felt relieved, but I wasn't, because Graham wasn't playing along anymore. He was straining, grinding his teeth when managers dumped extra work on him, fingers digging into his desk until the wood groaned, laughter through clenched teeth when someone screwed up. He was angry, and he was holding it in. Then it happened. Late one evening, just the two of us, fluorescents buzzing. a distant janitor vacuuming. I kept my eyes on my screen, fingers moving, mind racing. I couldn't leave first, not if it meant finding him waiting outside again. Then, a sigh, long, tired. I froze. Then, in a voice that wasn't cheerful, wasn't joking, "Man, this job sucks." I stopped typing. I had never heard him talk like that before. No grin, no performance. Just tired. I risked a glance. Graham leaned back, staring at the ceiling, fingers drumming against the desk. "You ever feel like you're meant for more?" My throat was dry. I don't know." He shook his head, gesturing at the office. This is what I get to do every day. Push numbers, file paperwork." A bitter laugh. "You know what I used to be?" I didn't answer. Graham looked at his hands. I was unstoppable. His fingers flexed, curling into a fist. I had a purpose, a job I was actually good at. Then, exhale, forced smile. But you know, one mistake, one bad day. I waited for more, but he just looked at me, and for the first time, his eyes weren't friendly, not menacing either. Something worse, lonely. And for a second, I felt something awful. Sympathy. Because Graham was miserable. Because he had peaked too early. Because he was too big, too strong, too much to fit here. Because he had lost everything and was rotting in a cubicle. Then, he laughed, shook it off. "Hey, what am I saying?" He clapped me on the back, grinning again. The spell broke. The moment was gone. And the fear came rushing back. Because Graham wasn't just frustrated. He was waiting for something to push him over the edge. And me? I was stuck in the splash zone. I had to know, had to understand what I was dealing with. So one night, I followed Graham. I shouldn't have. I knew it was stupid, but I did it anyway. He entered an empty gym. I slipped inside, hid behind a weight rack, and I watched. Graham loaded weights onto a barbell. 200 pounds, 300, 301, 302. My breath hitched. Then he lifted it, effortlessly, and kept going. Item. The Dunder. The bar bent. The rack groaned. And Graham, he smiled, like it was nothing. I stumbled out of the gym, because Graham wasn't human, and I was too close to the truth. I wasn't safe anymore. I had spent too long pretending, smiling when he smiled, laughing when he laughed, telling myself I could navigate him. But I was never under his radar. I was in his spotlight, and now I had to get out. I updated my resume, applied everywhere, remote jobs, out-of-state openings, anything that would take me far from here. When I got an offer in another city, I didn't hesitate. I booked a one-way ticket. No notice, no goodbyes, no forwarding address, no trace. I told no one. The next day, Kessler had another accident. Fell down the stairs, they said. But we all knew. He wasn't coming back this time. And Graham? Graham sat at his desk eating a sandwich. No bruised knuckles, no scratches, just chewing, smiling, like nothing had happened. That was it. I snapped. That night I stormed into the office after hours, hands shaking, pulse pounding. I was done pretending. I was going to confront him. I was going to demand answers. Why I had been spared. Why I hadn't been wiped like the others. Why he was keeping me here. Instead, I found Kessler's hospital file on Graham's desk. I flipped through it, stomach twisting. He had been visiting him, not just once, regularly. The thought made my skin crawl. Then, voices. I barely had time to duck behind the cubicle wall. Graham and one of the men in black, chatting, laughing, like old friends. I peeked around the corner, heart slamming against my ribs. Graham clapped the suited man on the shoulder, grinning. "Come on, man. You know how it is. Job's a job." The suited man smirked. "Just try not to break this one." My blood ran cold. This one. Graham had other jobs before, other incidents. And the men in black? They kept covering for him. I was stuffing my life into a suitcase when the knock came. Not a friendly knock. A heavy, deliberate one. I froze. I already knew. I cracked the door open an inch. Graham stood there, too big for the frame, smiling like always. But his eyes, wrong. "Hey man," he said. "Can I come in?" I gripped the doorknob. My apartment was small, too small for both of us. If he stepped inside, if he shut that door behind him, I was just heading to bed. A beat. "Late night?" he asked. "Casual. Too casual." I nodded. "Yeah. Long week." Graham studied me. Then, "I've been thinking." His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. "You and me, we've been through a lot together." Something inside me coiled tight. I really thought we were friends. The words landed heavy. I forced a smile. "We are, Graham." His expression didn't change. "Then why are you acting weird?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He sighed, rolling his shoulders, eyes flicking past me. To the suitcase. A long pause. When he looked back at me, the smile had shifted. Smaller, sharper. "You going somewhere, Elliot?" "Don't panic." "Nah, just cleaning up." Graham didn't blink. The silence stretched thin, ready to snap. Then he chuckled. "Yeah, I get it." I exhaled slowly, trying not to let it shake. "You know," he murmured, voice lower now. "I always wondered why they let you remember." Cold trickled down my spine. "What?" His eyes gleamed. "Everybody else? Gone. But you?" He tilted his head. "You got to keep it all." My hands felt clammy. "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. Graham smiled, leaning in, just enough for the air between us to feel wrong. "Maybe they want you to." The breath hitched in my throat. "Maybe they need you to." The world felt too small. "Maybe I do." The words sent a spike of cold terror through me. Graham watched me, waiting, amused. I forced myself to breathe, forced my voice to stay steady. Guess I'll see you Monday then. Another pause. Then, he grinned again, like I had passed some kind of test. Yeah, bud. See you Monday. He clapped me on the shoulder, nearly knocking me off balance. Then he turned, walked away. I didn't move, didn't breathe until I knew he was gone. Then I slammed the door, locked every bolt, and collapsed against it, hands shaking. I had bought myself 2 more days, nothing more. I didn't stop to pack, didn't sleep, didn't breathe until I was on the plane, watching the city shrink beneath me. New apartment, new job, new name on the lease, no forwarding address, no social media, no trace. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. For the first time in months, I felt safe. No Graham, no looming presence, no too hard back pats or forced conversations. Just a normal job with normal people. Cubicles, coffee breaks, office small talk. It took time, but I started to breathe again. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. The sun was shining. The air was crisp. I walked into my new office, coffee in hand, settling into my new routine. I was free. Then, a voice, too familiar, too friendly. Hey, bud. Guess who got a new job? The air vanished from my lungs. I turned, and there he was, Graham, beaming, like a dog seeing its owner after years apart. He clapped me on the shoulder, and my legs nearly buckled from the impact. Man, small world, huh? He laughed. I was dizzy. This wasn't possible. I had left no trail. How did he find me? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, he gestured toward the empty desk next to mine. And then, with pure childlike joy, we're cubicle mates again. I stood there frozen, mouth slightly open, pulse pounding so hard I could barely hear. Graham, grinning ear to ear. The office around us, oblivious. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Except I knew I would never escape. And so, I did the only thing I could do. I smiled back, because maybe we'd always been friends. It was late Friday, and the office was nearly empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their sterile glow washing over rows of abandoned desks. Most of my coworkers had fled hours ago, eager to escape. But not everyone. I lingered near the break room, pretending to check my phone. Inside, forced laughter rang out. Too loud, too sharp, like everything in this place. Tonight was supposed to be a team-building celebration, some half-hearted attempt at camaraderie after another soul-sucking quarter. No one had invited me, not officially. They never did. But I stayed anyway, out of obligation, out of habit. Eventually, I stepped inside, moving quietly. No one noticed at first. Lydia, from marketing, held court at the center of the room, twirling a half-empty bottle of wine. Across from her, Ryan, our smug department head, lounged in his chair, tie loosened, whiskey in hand, casual authority in human form. A handful of others hovered nearby, their chatter barely audible over Lydia's grating laugh. I took my usual spot in the corner, nursing a beer from the mini fridge. I didn't want to be here. But home, my cramped, silent apartment, the smell of damp laundry, the endless cycle of scrolling until I passed out, felt worse. Then Lydia spotted me. Her eyes narrowed, lips curling into that familiar smirk, the one that always made me feel small, disposable. "Well, look who finally decided to join us," she announced. I forced a smile. "Hey." She mimicked my tone, mockery dripping from every syllable, already turning back to Ryan. He chuckled, like we were in on some unspoken joke. I sipped my beer, staring at the floor. The night dragged. The more they drank, the louder they got. At one point, Lydia climbed onto the table, shrieking along to an off-key pop song, nearly knocking over a tray of stale cupcakes. Ryan cheered her on, his laughter too big, too certain, like he owned the room. I sat in the corner, invisible. Then my thoughts shifted. Darker. What if I stood up right now? What if I smashed my bottle against the table, made them listen? I imagined the silence, the way their laughter would die mid-throat. In another version, I was calm, deliberate. I had my gun, the one I bought at that pawn shop, locked away in my desk for protection. One glimpse, and they'd finally see me. The thought unsettled me, but it didn't leave. It coiled in my chest, waiting. My pulse hammered. My hands felt damp. My gaze flicked toward the door, measuring the distance to my office. "You all right, Alan?" Ryan's voice sliced through my haze. He wasn't looking at me. None of them were. It wasn't a question, just a casual jab, a reminder of my place. Then Lydia, emboldened by alcohol, got an idea. She disappeared into the supply closet and returned with a bundle of metal chains, the kind maintenance used to lock up the storage sheds out back. "Let's spice things up," she said, dropping them onto the table with a heavy clatter. Ryan chuckled. "What exactly do you plan to do with that?" She grinned. "What do you think?" Laughter rippled through the room, but I stayed quiet, watching as she lifted a length of chain, twisting it in her hands. Then she turned to me. "Hey, Alan, why don't you come over here and help me test these out?" My stomach clenched. I shook my head. "No thanks." "Oh, come on." She took a step closer, grinning. "Don't be such a stick in the mud." I said no. Ryan exhaled an exaggerated sigh. "Jesus, lighten up. It's a joke." It wasn't a joke to me. Lydia dangled the chain in front of me, eyes glittering with amusement. "What's the matter? Afraid you'll like it?" The room felt smaller. The walls seemed to close in. My pulse roared in my ears. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the tile. Lydia's smirk flickered, just for a second. I didn't speak. I just walked out. "Suit yourself," she called after me, already turning back to Ryan. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't go home. The hallway was silent except for the hum of the overhead lights. My legs carried me forward, past the darkened cubicles, straight to my office. I shut the door behind me and locked it. For weeks I'd been thinking about this, planning. My hands shook as I fumbled with the key, breath shallow. The lock clicked. I pulled the drawer open. There it was, black, unassuming, heavier than I remembered. It hadn't been hard to get. A pawn shop. 3 boxes of ammunition. I'd never fired it, but that didn't matter. I hovered over it, my fingers inches from the cold metal. Just the thought of it, the weight of it in my hands, the silence it could bring, sent a thrill down my spine. Then, from the break room, a burst of laughter. The spell shattered. I slammed the drawer shut, the sound deafening in the small office. My breath hitched, heart pounding against my ribs. What the hell am I doing? I grabbed my lukewarm beer and forced myself to leave, each step heavier than the last. By the time I reached the break room door, my palms were slick, the bottle trembling in my grip. I pushed the door open. No one looked up. Lydia was sprawled across the table, laughing too loudly at one of Ryan's insipid jokes. Music thrummed low in the background. The chains, forgotten, lay tangled on the floor. I slumped into my usual corner, gripping the beer, drowning in the noise. But the thoughts wouldn't stop clawing at the edges of my mind. "Hey, look who's back," Lydia called. "Miss us already?" Ryan smirked. "Changed your mind about joining the fun?" Then the door slammed open so hard the walls rattled. Everyone flinched. Marcus from IT stood in the doorway. He was usually a shadow in the office, someone who slipped through the cracks. But tonight, there was something different. His shoulders were stiff, his eyes dark. A black duffel bag was slung over one shoulder. Ryan chuckled, though there was an edge to it. "Late to the party, Marcus. Hope you brought beer." Marcus didn't answer. He crossed the room in silence and dropped the bag onto the table with a thud. The usual snickering died instantly. The only sound left was the buzz of the fluorescents. Ryan leaned back in his chair, grin fading. "What's in the bag?" Lydia asked. Marcus unzipped it. Metal glinted inside. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. "I'm tired of this," Marcus said, voice low, steady. Then he pulled out the gun. The room fractured. "What the hell, Marcus?" Ryan shot to his feet, hands up, his usual arrogance crumbling. "Sit down," Marcus said. He didn't have to raise his voice. Something about the way he said it made the air feel colder. Lydia let out a nervous laugh. "You're joking, right? This is some kind of, what, team-building exercise?" Marcus turned the gun on her. Her hands lifted slowly. "I'm not joking." Ryan hesitated, his gaze flicking to the door. Marcus tracked the movement, shifting the barrel toward him. Ryan sat back down. "What are you doing?" Lydia's voice was brittle now. "Marcus, come on. This isn't you." Marcus let out a hollow laugh. "Isn't it? You think you know me, Lydia? Any of you?" I stayed frozen in the corner, heart hammering. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. My fingers gripped the beer bottle so tightly I thought it might shatter. Ryan tried again. "You don't have to do this." "Oh, I do." Marcus's voice was almost eerily measured. "I'm done being invisible. I'm done being treated like I don't exist. Tonight, you're going to see me." The words hit me like a fist to the gut. Because they could have been mine, I opened my mouth before I could stop myself. "You don't have to do this." The words felt small, useless, but they hung there, fragile. Marcus turned to me. His eyes narrowed. "Don't I, Alan?" His voice sharpened, cutting straight through me. "You, of all people, should understand." I shook my head. "I don't." A lie. "This is the only way." He nodded toward the chains still piled on the table. "Pick those up. We're making sure no one goes anywhere." No one moved. "Now." Ryan's hands trembled as he reached for the chains. Lydia sat frozen, her lips pressed into a thin line. Marcus turned back to me. You too, Alan. Or do you want to be next? The room felt suffocating. I stood. My legs felt like lead as I walked to the table and picked up a length of chain. The metal was ice cold in my hands. Wrap her wrists, Marcus said. Lydia stiffened. You're making him. Do it, Marcus snapped. She flinched, and for the first time, real fear flickered in her eyes. My hands shook as I stepped toward her. I have no choice, I wanted to say, but the words wouldn't come. I looped the chain around her wrists, tying a clumsy knot. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't fight me. Good, Marcus murmured, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. Now her legs. My stomach twisted. Lydia didn't say a word, but her hands trembled. Her breath came in shallow gasps. I bent down and wrapped the chain around her ankles. The room shrank with every passing second. The walls pressed inward, trapping us in a bubble of stale air and flickering fluorescent light. See, Marcus murmured, almost gleeful. This is what happens when someone finally takes control. My gaze flicked to Ryan. His face was pale, jaw clenched, not looking at me, but at the gun in Marcus's hand. Don't even think about it, Marcus warned, catching Ryan's glance. He raised the gun slightly. Ryan flinched. You're not the hero here. Neither am I thought, the weight of the chain pressing into my palm. Marcus picked up another length of metal and tossed it to Ryan. Now tie her legs. What? Lydia jerked against the chair. No, you can't. Do it. Ryan hesitated, then crouched beside her. She kicked at him, but he grabbed her legs, looping the chain around her calves. His hands trembled as he tightened the links. You're a psycho, she spat, glaring at Marcus. A complete psycho. Keep talking. Marcus's voice was light, but his grip on the gun didn't waver. It won't help. Ryan finished and stepped back, his breathing uneven. Marcus paced the room, circling us like a predator. Then his gaze landed on me. You were going to get your gun, weren't you? His lips curled into a knowing smile. What? My voice barely made it past my throat. Don't play dumb. His tone sharpened. You've thought about it. I've seen the way they treat you. The jokes, the looks, the way they pretend you don't exist. Lydia let out a high, nervous laugh. Okay, Marcus. This is a sick joke, right? You're trying to freak us out. Marcus turned to her, face unreadable. Do I look like I'm joking, Lydia? Her smirk faltered. Ryan leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. Marcus, let's think about this. Whatever's bothering you, we can fix it. We'll listen. Marcus scoffed. That's rich, coming from you. You've never listened to anyone a day in your life. Ryan shook his head. No one meant anything by it. We're just co-workers. Marcus took a step closer, leaning in so their faces were inches apart. You think that makes it better? That your condescension is somehow excusable because you clock out at 5? He straightened and turned to Lydia. She was rigid in her chair, her chin raised in defiance. You've been laughing at me for years, Marcus said. Every time you called me pathetic, boring, weird. You think I didn't notice? She said nothing, but her fingers curled into fists. Marcus smirked. That's what I thought. The gun wavered, just slightly. Ryan noticed. His jaw tensed, waiting, calculating. Marcus caught it. Nice try. He snapped the barrel toward Ryan, freezing him mid-movement. Now sit down. Ryan sank back into his chair, face ashen. The air grew heavier, thick with something toxic. My thoughts spiraled, a tangle of disbelief and fear. Then Marcus turned back to me. Alan. His voice was softer now. You don't have to hide anymore. I'm giving you a chance to be seen, to be heard. My stomach twisted. I don't want this. My voice shook. But you do, Marcus pressed, stepping closer. You've wanted this for years. Don't deny it. I shook my head. You're wrong. His expression darkened, like I'd disappointed him. You can't even admit it to yourself, can you? You think staying quiet makes you better than them, but it doesn't. It just makes you a coward. The words hit harder than they should have, because part of me knew he wasn't wrong. I had fantasized about control, about making them see me. But this wasn't control. This was chaos. Lydia shifted, her movement slow, deliberate. Marcus, she whispered, voice shaking but steady. You don't have to do this. We can leave. No one has to get hurt. Marcus tilted his head. Oh, Lydia. His voice dripped with mock sympathy. Always so quick with the charm. But it won't work on me. She flinched. He turned back to me, and I felt his gaze like a physical weight pressing into my chest. Then he picked up the last chain. My heart slammed against my ribs, a steady drumbeat of panic. You know what's funny? Marcus mused, almost conversational. I used to think I was the only one who saw through this place. But then I noticed you, Alan. You get it. You're like me. I'm nothing like you, I spat. The words came out sharper than I intended. For a moment, his expression hardened. Then he smiled. Slow, unsettling. We'll see about that. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The room felt wrong, like the space around us was stretching, warping. The air thinned, colder now, and a low hum filled my ears, drowning out my own breath. Do you feel that? Marcus murmured, almost reverent. That's power, Alan. That's what it feels like to finally matter. You're insane, I whispered. He shrugged. Maybe, but at least I'm free. The shadows writhed. In the corner of my eye, something moved. Something tall, its limbs impossibly long. I blinked. Gone. But the feeling of being watched clung to me. What the hell is going on? Ryan's voice cut through the fog. Is this some kind of trick? Marcus smiled. No trick. This is what happens when you stop being a victim. The hum deepened, vibrating through my bones. The walls seemed closer. My vision blurred. Alan. Marcus's voice softened. You don't have to fight this. Just pick up the gun. I looked down. Another weapon lay on the table, its dark metal glinting under the stuttering light. My fingers twitched. No. The word barely left my lips. Marcus's expression darkened. You'll regret this. Lydia's eyes were unreadable. Ryan moved for the door. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. Because as I stared at the chains, the gun, and the pale faces of my co-workers, I realized I wasn't staring into the abyss. I was the abyss. Then the lights went out. The room plunged into pitch black. "What the hell?" Lydia's voice rang out, sharp and accusing. The darkness was thick, suffocating, pressing down like a living thing. I couldn't see my own hand, let alone anyone else. Every scrape of a chair, every breath was deafening. "Alan," Marcus's voice emerged from the black. "You feel it now, don't you? The weight of what they've done to us." "Shut up," I yelled, voice cracking. The sound echoed, bouncing off unseen walls. "Don't fight it," he whispered. "This is freedom. This is what they deserve." Then the laughter began. Soft at first, a chuckle from somewhere in the room. Not Ryan, not Lydia, not Marcus. "Who's there?" My throat clenched around the words. The laughter swelled, manic, bouncing between us. "It's not me," Marcus yelled, panic creeping into his voice. "I don't like this," Lydia whispered, too close to where I stood. "Stay where you are," Marcus barked, voice shaking. "I can't see anything," Ryan shouted. "What's going on, Marcus? Is this part of your sick game?" Marcus snapped, "It's not me." Then came the chains, a faint rattle. "Who's moving?" Marcus demanded. Silence. "Who's moving?" A loud clang. Lydia screamed. "What was that?" Ryan's voice wavered. "I don't know," Lydia gasped. "Something touched me." The lights flickered back, weak, erratic. The room was different. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor. The walls, farther away than before. Marcus stood in the center, gun raised, pointed at Ryan. Ryan, cowering near the door, sweat slick on his pale face. Lydia was still bound to the chair, wrists locked to the armrests, but the chains around her legs, undone. Marcus noticed. "How did you? Don't you see?" Lydia hissed, eyes wide and wild. "It's not just us." "There's no one else here," Marcus snapped, but the doubt was there, creeping in. Then his gaze locked onto me. "Alan." His voice was different now, urgent, desperate. "It's not too late. Pick up the gun. Show them they can't treat us like this." My eyes dropped to the floor. The second gun lay near my feet, gleaming in the dim light, daring me. "This isn't right," I muttered. "This isn't me." Marcus took a step closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Isn't it?" I flinched. "You were ready before I got here. You had it all planned. I'm just giving you permission." The room tilted, the floor slanting beneath me. He was lying, wasn't he? The memory of standing in my office, gun in hand, burned behind my eyes. "Stop it," I said. Marcus smiled, slow and wrong. "I know you, Alan, because I'm you." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Then, a low growl. The sound sent a shudder through my spine. Ryan bolted for the door. It didn't budge. He slammed his fists against it. "Let me out. Let me out." The overhead light swung violently, its glow stuttering. Shadows moved, dancing, crawling. My vision blurred. Marcus was gone. In his place, a figure. It stood in the corner, too tall, its limbs too long, its head tilted at a sickening angle. It wasn't moving, but I could feel it watching me. "Ryan," I I choked out. He turned, followed my gaze. "There's nothing there," he whispered, voice trembling. I swallowed. "It's right there." I blinked. The corner was empty. Lydia laughed, a sharp, high-pitched sound that scraped against my skin. "You see it, don't you?" she whispered. "Sing-song. You brought it here." "Shut up," I snapped, my voice too much like Marcus's. She just kept laughing. Ryan stumbled away from the door, eyes darting, breath coming fast. "What's happening?" he panted. "What is this?" "This isn't real," I muttered. "This isn't real." But the chains rattled, and the laughter returned. Closer this time. Ryan turned to me, his face drained of color. "Alan," his voice barely more than a whisper. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything." "Liar," Lydia screamed. She lunged, the chains snapped taut, her eyes, wild, wrong, rage twisting her face. Then, the second bulb exploded, and we were swallowed by darkness. The lights flickered back on. Everything was still. The chains were gone. Lydia stood in the center of the room, unbound, hands at her sides. Ryan lay on the floor, unconscious, or worse. "What did you do to him?" My voice trembled. Lydia's expression remained eerily calm. "I didn't do anything." She tilted her head. "You did." My stomach turned. "Number, that's not true." "Don't you remember?" she asked, stepping closer. "You've been doing this all night." "You're lying." Lydia didn't answer, just watched me. Then I looked down at my hands. They were covered in blood. "No." The room tilted. My knees buckled. "No, I didn't." "You did," she said flatly. I staggered back, tripping over a chair. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, but I barely felt it. Lydia crouched beside me, her breath warm against my face. "You wanted this," she whispered. "You've always wanted this." "No." I shoved her away, scrambling to my feet. But when I looked back, it wasn't Lydia anymore. It was me. Same face, same clothes, same haunted eyes. My own reflection smirked at me, twisted and cruel. Behind it, Lydia screamed. I turned. Marcus was back, gun pressed against her head. His voice cut through the chaos. "Choose, Alan. Are you with me or against me?" The room pulsed. The walls breathed. At my feet, the gun gleamed, pulling at me like a magnet. I looked at my hands again. Clean, unmarked. Something inside me shifted. A sharp, undeniable clarity. This wasn't me. This would never be me. I lunged. The gun wasn't for violence. It was for stopping it. Marcus turned, startled, but I was already there. I slammed into him, knocking the weapon loose. It skidded across the floor. We grappled. His fists flew, wild, desperate. "Alan, stop." Lydia's voice cracked with panic. But I couldn't stop. Years of anger, of frustration, of being unseen. Everything I'd buried poured out as I drove him to the ground. He fought, fueled by rage. But I was faster. I twisted his arm behind his back. He cried out. "It's over," I said, voice steady for the first time all night. The door burst open. Shouts, a blur of uniforms. Police, security. They pulled Marcus away, cuffing him as he thrashed and screamed. Lydia and Ryan were escorted out, pale and shell-shocked. I followed, legs weak, barely aware of the commotion around me. Outside, the air was sharp and real. Lydia turned to me. "Alan." Her voice was soft but firm. "You saved us." I didn't answer. My gaze locked onto the office building, its dark windows reflecting nothing. Later, when the chaos settled, I found myself alone in the hallway. A security camera blinked above the door. A monitor flickered nearby, playing back the footage. I watched. The grainy screen showed the break room, and me, standing alone, gun in hand. I blinked. The screen flickered. The room was empty. A chill coiled through my spine. "Alan!" Lydia's voice called from down the hall. "Are you coming?" I tore my eyes from the monitor, my mind racing. Had I imagined it? Or had I seen something I didn't want to understand? Something I could never undo? As we stepped into the night, I looked back at the building. Its windows were dark, hollow. I would never know the truth, and that was the real horror.